Dark crime dramas on Netflix are probably an area in which the platform thrives. The Jeffrey Dahmer series that was created by Ryan Murphy, which was released in 2022, broke several records and became one of the most watched shows ever created in Netflix's history. Inevitably, this meant that the higher-ups wanted to launch a series off the back of it, and with that, the Monster series was born. Lyle and Erik Menendez were the subjects of the second season of the show, and with it recently being released, I went into it anticipating something as dark as what we were given 2 years ago. But it's clear to see that Murphy went for a completely different approach this time round. So I thought I'd put the two shows up against each other and determine which one is a more accurate depiction of the events and also what is a better drama to watch. So let's get into it. Here is the Lyle and Erik Menendez Netflix show versus the Jeffrey Dahmer Netflix show. Darkness versus confusion. One of the main key differences between the Jeffrey Dahmer series and the Menendez series is the fact that one was a serial killer that murdered 17 people over the course of 13 years, whereas the Menendez brothers killed their parents on one evening in 1989 and were then caught several months later. The difference in personalities and the way that they were depicted was drastically different. For example, we saw how psychotic and messed up of an individual Jeffrey Dahmer was. It was hauntingly chilling to watch and it was extremely gripping. Each episode went to levels of darkness that I'd not really seen on TV before, and it really wanted to make us feel uncomfortable whilst watching it. It didn't hold back in what it showed us, and it did receive a lot of criticism for it. Obviously, it's an emotionally shattering situation because 17 people lost their lives due to the actions of one horrific man. And I feel this show depicted Dahmer's past and the journey of how he ended up as this deranged killer in a way that felt linear and relatively easy to follow. Darkness was at the heart of this show because within the core of Jeffrey Dahmer and the story of his murders, there was an absence of light. With regards to the Menendez brothers Netflix show, there were elements of darkness that were embedded within it, and the scene of them killing their parents was horrific to watch. But because at the center of the Menendez brothers case, there was a lot of confusion around whether or not they killed their parents because they were abused, or because they were sociopaths and wanted financial gain. Confusion was what was at the core of what we watched. It felt like there was a lot of repetition in this show. We saw certain events happening over and over again because it's like Ryan Murphy wanted to lean into the fact that nobody other than the brothers and their parents would have actually known what their relationship was like. So we saw Jose and Kitty depicted as evil individuals, but we also saw them as loving parents at the same time. We saw Lyle and Erik as people that had suffered abuse, but we also saw sociopathic traits within them as well, leading us to question what to believe, which was the intention. Serial killers and murderers don't all fall into the same category. They're notoriously known for being different. However, the Menendez brothers and Jeffrey Dahmer are completely different, and because of that, both of the shows have a very different feel, despite being under the same title, Monsters. Personally, I preferred the darker tone of the Dahmer show, as I felt like it was an experience when watching it in a horrific way. But at the same time, I thought Murphy leaning into the confusion around the Menendez case, the fact that it split the family and the public, and the fact that there was a deadlocked jury was a real creative move. However, I think season 1 was just a bit more easy to follow. The performance by the leading cast members. If there's one area where the shows are neck and neck, it's in the performances that the cast members deliver. Ryan Murphy loves reusing cast members across all of his shows. Most of them have stemmed from the wide pool that he's worked with in American Horror Story, and this was the case with Evan Peters depicting Jeffrey Dahmer. Evan Peters was always great when he appeared in American Horror Story, but within this show, he genuinely felt like a transformed individual, and it wasn't like we were watching a depiction from an actor that we'd seen before. It was so unsettling to watch, and you believed every word, the mannerisms, and every action that he made. With regards to the Menendez brothers depiction, they also delivered really strong performances in their roles. Ryan Murphy and the casting company put out an open casting call for the two brothers to be cast, and it led to the two which we saw in the show being given the roles. They were extremely convincing in their performances, and their relationship was at the heart of the show. Two brothers that cared about each other enough that they would kill for one another, and you really felt that connection in the show. As well as Nicholas Chavez and Cooper Koch, Javier Bardem and Chloe Savini had important roles in the show, as they played the boys' parents. Unlike the Dahmer show, where it felt like quite an isolated one, this one was really centered around the family dynamic due to the case. And in speaking of the case, I thought Ari Gaynor as Leslie was a standout performer in this show. Again, it's difficult to compare them because they are very different, but if I'm going off of overall performance, I would probably say the Dahmer series because Evan Peters took the role to levels that I didn't think it would go to. and it's probably his strongest performance to date. Plus, the other cast members in the show, such as Richard Jenkins and Nicey Nash, were amazing as well. The controversy. One thing that both of these shows have in common is that upon their releases, they both stirred up a lot of controversy from the viewers. The Dahmer series had controversy to the point where the families of the people that Jeffrey Dahmer murdered accused Netflix of profiting off their traumatic experiences and re-traumatizing the families all over again. It was said that Netflix didn't reach out to the families before making the show, which showed how insensitive of an approach they took. With regards to the Menendez show, there has also been some controversy around it already in the few days that it's been released. There was a scene in the show where the brothers were intimate with one another, and apparently certain Menendez family members have come out and said how that wasn't true. Erik also released a statement saying that Lyle was portrayed like a caricature which was rooted in horrible and blatant lies. When doing shows that are based on real people and are focused on such sensitive, horrific events, there's bound to be some people that feel the show crosses a line. But in the case of the Dahmer series, it did really feel like Netflix didn't handle it in the most appropriate way in putting the family of the victims front of mind, which is something that they definitely should have done. So which show is better? I would say that the Dahmer series is significantly better of a TV show when compared to the Menendez brothers season. At the end of every episode of season 1, I was going straight on to the next one because I needed to know what happened, and it was so gripping, engaging, and haunting. Whereas with this one, the show felt a bit too long for its own good. The confusion element was creative and interesting, but I feel as though it made the show just feel a bit disjointed, and like it didn't have a natural rhythm or flow. Instead, it felt like a show of 3/3. The first 3 episodes, which were good, which were centered around the family life, the killing, and the immediate aftermath. Then the middle 3 episodes, which is where it felt like the creativity came into the show, which I think just made it lose itself just a little bit. And then the final third, which was when the boys were on trial and it was abuse versus financial gain, which then brought the show back on track. Ryan Murphy has a distinct style when it comes to his shows, and the Lyle and Erik Menendez brothers show felt like Ryan Murphy had his hands all over it, whereas the Dahmer show didn't as much. That show felt like it had its own identity and didn't feel like a product of Murphy as much, kind of like how The Watcher and The Politician felt when they were released. I know it sounds weird, but sometimes Ryan Murphy's style can kind of take away from what we're watching, and I think this show fell victim to that just a little bit. Both shows are very good in their own right and tell the story of the horrific crimes that occurred. Tonally, they are both dark. One is just a lot darker than the other one and has the events mapped out in a way that makes the viewer feel more connected to the story that's being told due to the more linear approach. They're both haunting shows to watch, and there's nothing that will take away from that. But I would say that when it comes to television and what makes a good show, the Dahmer one just takes it. So, there you have it, the Lyle and Erik Menendez Netflix show versus the Jeffrey Dahmer Netflix show. If you want to see a video breaking down the Lyle and Erik Menendez show, then click on the card in the top corner. I discuss just how accurate the show actually is. Or alternatively, you can head over to my channel where you'll find more videos on your favourite TV shows and movies broken down. Which show did you prefer? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. As always, thanks for tuning into the video, and I'll see you in the next one.